Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at something pretty surprising today, a major shift between two tech giants.
Absolutely. For years, Apple and Google have been these huge mobile rivals locked in competition.
Fierce competition, hardware, software services, you name it. But now, well, the sources we're looking at say they're collaborating.
On the biggest thing right now, artificial intelligence. That's the core of it.
Right. And it's about Siri, isn't it? Giving Siri a much-needed boost.
A fundamental overhaul, really.
Hmm.
Siri's felt, well, let's be honest, kind of stuck for a while now. And the intelligence for this upgrade, it's not coming from Apple Park.
It's coming from Google, directly from Google. That's the twist.
That's the core conflict, yeah. And it's what we're digging into.
So our mission here is to really unpack the details from the reports. What specific Google AI is involved? What can Siri actually do now?
And the cost, right. What does a partnership like this even cost?
Exactly. The cost, and maybe most importantly, what does this signal, this kind of strategic team up between rivals, what does it mean for AI's future?
Well, the first big detail, the one that really grabs you, is that Apple's reportedly using a custom version of Google's Gemini AI.
A custom version, so not just off the shelf.
Right. High performance, tailored. This isn't some minor license deal. It's like embedding a rival's brain into your ecosystem.
Okay, let's start with why. Why go outside? We all know Siri struggles sometimes. What's the user frustration point it's supposed to fix?
Well, handling anything complex, right? Anything that needs context or putting things together.
Yeah, you ask it to do more than one thing or something nuanced, and it just falls apart.
Precisely. So what do the sources say Gemini is specifically good at? What's the fix here?
That's the key question.
And it's interesting. It's not just about making Siri generally smarter. It seems very targeted.
Targeted how?
The reports emphasize that Apple is leveraging Gemini for two main things: creating summaries and managing planning tasks. That's where Gemini apparently excels.
Summaries and planning. Okay, let's make that real for a listener. What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, think about the difference between, say, setting one timer versus managing your whole day based on emails, messages, calendar events.
Right, like if you ask Siri, hey, pull together the key points from my boss's emails this week on that big project.
And then draft a meeting agenda based on the main issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Current Siri would just give you web search results, probably.
Exactly. It fails because it can't synthesize. It can't connect different data points and then generate something useful, something structured.
So this Gemini integration is meant to bridge that gap.
That's the goal. The sources say the aim is a Siri that's smarter, understands context, and can actually handle those complex multi-step requests seamlessly.
Moving it from just reacting to commands.
To being a proactive assistant. That's the transformation they're shooting for.
Okay, makes sense. The goal is clear. Catch up in the AI assistant race. But this brings us to the really thorny part. The partnership itself.
With Google, of all companies.
Yeah. Why Google? Given their history, the Android versus iOS battle, wouldn't Apple normally just, buy some smaller AI startup? Or pour billions into their own internal teams?
That is the billion-dollar question, literally, perhaps.
Yeah.
The fact they went to Google suggests, well, probably two things.
Okay.
One, their internal efforts might have been lagging more than we thought. And two, that Gemini, specifically for those summary and planning tasks.
It just offered something unique, something they couldn't find elsewhere.
Something unmatched, yeah. Either by smaller firms they could acquire, or maybe even by what they could build fast enough themselves.
Which leads us straight to the money. Because putting your core tech basically in the hands of your biggest competitor, that doesn't come cheap.
No, it certainly doesn't.
What kind of price tag are we talking about here? What did the sources say?
The figure being reported is, well, it's pretty staggering. It really defines the scale of this whole thing. Apple is apparently expected to pay around $1 billion.
A billion, with a B.
Per year, annually, for access to Gemini and presumably the infrastructure needed to run it effectively.
Wow, $1 billion a year. Just put that in perspective for us. How big is that for Apple?
It's huge. For comparison, think about their total spending on things like buildings, equipment, retail stores, their non-R&D capital expenses.
Yeah.
$1 billion is roughly what they spend on all of that every 3 months or so.
So it's a massive ongoing cost just to license intelligence from a rival.
A huge commitment.
What does that money really buy them, though, beyond just the AI model itself?
Time, mostly. think it buys them time.
Time, how so?
Well, look at the AI race. It's moving incredibly fast, right? Building a comparable model from scratch, training it, tuning it for devices, deploying it globally.
That takes years
Mhm.
and huge investment.
Exactly. Maybe 3, 4, 5 years. And potentially costing even more in the long run. By paying Google $1 billion a year, they essentially leapfrog that whole development cycle.
They catch up faster.
They catch up to competitors like OpenAI, like Google itself, and make sure Siri doesn't just become irrelevant overnight. It's buying speed to market.
And it probably buys some certainty too, right? That level of investment shows how serious they are about fixing Siri.
Absolutely. It signals they need this level of functionality,
Mm-hmm.
and they're willing to pay top dollar to get the best external tools rather than wait for internal development.
It's an all-in move. Procurement over, potentially slower invention.
Precisely. And that decision, that choice, is what really signals this massive strategic shift happening at Apple.
Okay, let's dig into that strategic shift because Apple's whole identity, for decades really, has been built on doing things in-house.
Vertical integration, yeah.
Mhm.
They control the silicon, the OS, the App Store, everything. They pride themselves on innovation from within.
So why is generative AI different? Why does that do-it-ourselves philosophy seem to break down here?
Well, I think it comes down to the sheer pace and, frankly, the resource intensity of building these cutting-edge foundational AI models.
It's just a different beast compared to designing a chip or an OS.
It seems so. You need absolutely massive data sets, enormous computing power, and a very specific kind of deep AI talent pool. Maybe even Apple found it difficult or just too slow to marshal all of that exclusively in-house quickly enough to compete right now.
So it's almost an admission then that for
Right.
these huge AI models, the old way, the purely internal way, just isn't fast enough anymore.
Certainly looks like a pragmatic calculation. Maybe strategically awkward, yeah, given the Google relationship, but prioritizing the user experience and staying competitive over sticking to historical principles.
Pragmatism over purity, maybe.
You could put it that way. It's acknowledging that right now some of the best AI resides elsewhere, and the quickest path to getting that power into the hands of, millions of iPhone users is through a partnership.
Even with your biggest rival.
Even then. And that's why this could be, as the sources suggest, potentially redefining how we think about virtual assistants.
Redefining because the source of the smartness is changing. It's not just about who builds the best hardware or OS anymore.
Exactly. The competitive edge might be shifting. It's not just can you build it, but can you access it? Can you integrate the best available intelligence wherever it comes from?
So it shows that even giants like Apple might need to look outside their own walls to stay at the forefront, especially in AI.
It seems that way. This isn't just a simple deal. It feels like a potential paradigm shift. Collaboration, even rivalrous collaboration, might become essential for relevance in this incredibly fast-moving tech landscape.
Okay, let's bring this together then. A quick recap of what we've unpacked from the sources.
Sure.
First, the tech. Apple's integrating a custom Google Gemini model, specifically targeting Siri's ability to handle complex summaries and planning.
Right, the core capability upgrade.
Second, the cost. A reported $1 billion per year, underscoring the urgency and the value Apple places on getting this right now.
A massive financial commitment.
And third, the strategy. A major shift for Apple, moving away from pure in-house development for this critical AI piece, choosing external expertise, even from a rival.
The significant break from tradition, yeah.
So the big takeaway for you, the listener, your experience with Siri is likely about to change quite dramatically, hopefully for the better.
That's the user-facing goal, definitely. And for the industry watchers, the takeaway is, well, the rivalry's still there, of course, but the immediate need for cutting-edge AI seems to be overriding historical barriers to collaboration.
The focus shifts from just building AI to accessing the best AI fast.
Precisely. Getting that intelligence integrated quickly is key.
Which leads us to a final thought, something to mull over, building on that strategic angle.
Okay.
If AI leadership now hinges less on who can build the absolute best model internally, and more on who can afford or strategically partner to access the best external models, does that fundamentally change the game?
Interesting question.
Is the competitive advantage for these tech giants shifting from purely proprietary invention towards, strategic procurement and clever integration? Is that the future of how critical innovation happens at the highest level?
That's a really interesting question to ponder.
Right.
Does the advantage shift from the inventors to the integrators, or maybe the ones who can afford the best partnerships.
Something to think about while you wait for your potentially much smarter summary writing, plan making Siri to arrive.